Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Quartix webinar. My name is Alison Ashley, and today I'm going to talk about driver style reports. I'm joined this afternoon by my colleague Jess, who will be hosting the question and answer session at the end. And we're looking for your feedback this afternoon. And towards the right-hand side of your screen, as shown on this image here, you should see a questions and feedback button and box where you can type your questions. So any comments at all or any questions, please do type away and we'll address your questions at the end. If we don't get to all of your questions, we do have quite a large audience this afternoon, so if we don't get to all of your questions, then please be reassured that one of us will come back to you afterwards. Okay, right, so this afternoon the reports and the features that I'm going to run through are going to be part of our Info Plus package. So if you don't have Info Plus, you won't see the driver style menu option when you log in. If you are interested in upgrading, then you can either contact us during the webinar. If you just simply type the word upgrade or interested in upgrade, we know who you are because you've registered with us. We do have your details and we'll come back to you afterwards. Or there will be some email addresses coming up at the end, so you can contact either me directly or part of our customer resources team, and we can provide you some full information on upgrading. Okay, right, this afternoon I'm going to run through our driver style menu, and that consists of our daily driver briefing, our daily style league table, our driver style trend report, our monthly speed report, and our weekly speed and utilization chart. Okay, but before I do that, I'm going to run through some of the calculations that you'll see on our reports. So the first calculation I'm going to run through is our driver style calculation. Okay, so basically we measure this based on the frequency and the severity of harsh incidents, both braking and acceleration. You'll see on the screen here that we've got 10 different levels and we give weighted scores for each level of severity. So, for example, a level 1 braking incident, although very mild, and it does score you very few points. It's 0.2 of a point actually, but if there are lots of these mild braking incidents, they can add up and they will give a higher score for that driver. So if they are very frequent, it can have a detrimental effect on his overall score. We will look at some examples as we go into the live system. Okay, and the next calculations that I wanted to show you was in relation to our safe speed database. Now the safe speed database has been built by Quartix. It is unique to us. We have in fact won the Queen's Award for Enterprise in the innovation category for this, and we've also produced a white paper on it. So if you would like more information, if again you just type white paper into the box, then we'll send you an email link afterwards where you can click on that and read some more in-depth information. There are also some case sort of scenarios on there as well that you can read through, which are really interesting. Okay, but basically because we process over 30 million data points, locations and speed every day over a number of years, we've collected all of this information and we're able to compare that data for your vehicle against other road users who have used those stretches of roads. So we're able to deem what a safe speed is for that road. So if, for instance, the majority of road users go at a certain speed or below a certain speed and your driver is above that, then we consider that driver to be at risk as he's deviating from the normal speed for that particular road. Okay, we categorise that into 5 bands. So if your driver is going faster than the average, it's categorised into one of 5 bands. And the driver is given a relative speed score depending on where they fall in comparison to other road users. Okay, so that is regardless of what the actual speed limit is. We're just looking at what other road users do as well. Okay. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hop into our live system and hopefully I can bring that up on the screen for you now. Okay, so you should see a map on your screen. That's actually our live tracking map. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the menu here. Okay, and you'll see that we've got the driving style option on the menu here. So if you are on our info point package, you won't have this option on the menu. And as I've mentioned previously, you can come back to us during or after the webinar and we can talk to you about upgrading. Okay, so I'm going to click on the driver style and I'm going to work my way down the menu. So starting at the top, we've got the daily driver briefing. Okay, and I've got a good example to show you this afternoon. Let me find this vehicle. I'm going to select a vehicle. I'm going to select this one down here, this BMW. You can select by driver if you want. If you're a customer of ours that has driver ID enabled, then you're able to run these reports by driver as well as by vehicle. But for the purposes of the demonstration this afternoon, we're going to run it by vehicle. Okay, we have a date selected here of the 5th of the 6th. I'm just going to leave that where it is and I'm going to say OK. Obviously you can go back in time if you want. We do currently at the moment store 6 months worth of data online. Okay, so you'll see it's brought up a chart here and instantly as soon as you glance at it you can see lots of red, which is not good. Okay, just to run you through the top chart, so the speed report, this is the safe speed that I was talking about. Okay, so we can see that below the speed limit, which is the blue here, there's lots of blue on here, which is what you would expect. The yellow is below the speed limit, but they have a high relative speed. So although they're within the law, they're say below 30 miles an hour, they might have a high relative speed in comparison to other road users using that stretch of road. And we'll have a look at an example of that in a moment. Okay, the red is above speed limit, which obviously they're breaking the law. And then the darker red colour is above speed limit and a high relative score, so that's really not good at all. And you can see that this driver has got quite a few incidents of it here. What I'm going to do, you're kind of instantly attracted to where he's got to the 100 mark here. So if I hover over here, you can see the time of day of 14:18 and you can see his speed was 100.7 miles an hour, which is obviously not good. His relative speed is to the maximum, so he is 100% there. There may be other road users that have done 100%, but he's certainly way up there in the top percentages. And then we have the speed limit for the road, which was 70 miles an hour, so he's well exceeded the speed limit. And you can see that most road users are around sort of 83.3 on that particular part of the road. Now I'm thinking that this is a motorway, so let us click on here, and what it will do is it will take us to the route map, and you can see the speed limit there. And we can scroll in, and what we're looking for is one of our data points, these arrows, these color-coded arrows. You'll notice the colors on the side of the screen here, the key. So he was doing 70 miles an hour or above all the way down the M40 by the looks of it. Okay, and I'm looking for the one with the halo around it here. Okay, so this is the particular data point where he was going 100.7 miles an hour. Okay, you can see that the data points either side, like afterwards he's doing 90.7 and before here he was doing 91.4. So he's been very speedy all along that route really, and obviously breaking the law. And it would be a driver that if you saw this on their reporting that maybe you should have a word with and you know, tell him that he is driving too fast. Okay, right, I'm going to go back. And we're back to the chart here. Now I mentioned where you can be below the speed limit but still have a high relative speed. Okay, so we've got a couple of incidents of it here. You can see some yellow here and a big block of yellow here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over this one. So we can see the time, the speed again. So he was only doing 25.5 miles per hour, but his relative speed is really high. He's in the top couple of percentages again of road users doing that particular speed on that road. So the speed limit is 30 miles an hour. Okay, but most road users are going a lot slower than that at around 18.3. So what I'm going to do is just click on this one and we'll have a look and see where he was. Okay, right, I think I can just about see the halo here. Okay, so he's come off the M40. Okay, we scroll in a bit here. Let's go on to the satellite view. Okay, and it looks like he's in a housing estate here, so we just scroll in a little bit more. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the Google Orange Man down so that we can have a good close look at his location at that time. Okay, right, so he is indeed in a residential area. Okay, you can see maybe a few hazards down here. Okay, so it's 3:07 in the afternoon. This looks like a school here. Okay, so it may very well be that there are parents picking children up from school. There are parked cars along the road when this particular image was taken, but you can imagine that it's school picking up time. There's going to be a lot more cars here dropping off and picking up. Yeah, so there's a few hazards going on here, and the driver was doing 25.5 miles an hour down here at that particular time. So this is a really good example of using our safe speed scoring to assess the risk. I'm sure you'd agree that that is quite risky driving, considering all these hazards that are about on this road, and particularly at this time of the day. Okay. Right, I'm going to go back to the chart again. Okay, so we've dealt with the top chart there. I'm just going to go down to the driving style report where we measure the daily driving score. Okay, so you can see that he scores 49.8, so he's in the red. That score is out of 100. And 100, obviously, he would be in a green score down there. He would be very good. You can see that he's hitting the top and the bottom of the charts again. Okay, if we click here, and I spoke at the start of the presentation on the PowerPoint about levels of acceleration and braking. So level 1 being the mildest and level 5 being the harshest. So you can see on the acceleration, he's done 214 level 1 fairly mild acceleration incidents. But these mild incidents, because he's done so many of them, they have built up and they've sent him off of the chart. They've sent him right up to the top of the chart. These lines on the chart, they represent 6-minute segments during the day. So these can be made up of either severe incidents. I notice here he did do a couple of 4 and 5 level accelerations. Obviously 5 is a very severe level of acceleration, which could have sent him off the chart there, or it could have been a build-up of many of those 214 more milder incidents. Okay, so he's ended up with a score of 49.8, which is not good and can certainly be improved. Okay, so you might think that by looking at all of this information on this driver, he does pose quite a high risk really with his driving style. Okay, right, okay, I'm going to go back to the menu and back into the driving style menu, and I'm going to click on the next option down, which is the driving style league table. Okay, I'm going to run it by vehicle again. Again, if you do have driver ID, you can run it by driver. But I'm going to click on a start date. Let's look at a complete month. I'm going to click the 1st of June until the 30th of June. And then I'm going to say OK. Okay, right, so instantly you can see all the colours on here. You can see what's good and what's bad. Obviously the red is bad, the amber is not too bad, but there is room for improvement, and the green is pretty good. Okay, so it gives you a very good overview of what your fleet have been up to. You can identify who poses a risk, and you can make comparisons with your drivers as well. This can also be exported to Excel. You'll see towards the right hand side of the screen you've got an Excel button. You can export the information. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on this driver that we've been looking at here. It was this one actually, wasn't it, the BMW driver? Okay, and I'm going to click on him. Now we've got some options. We can go back to the daily driver briefing, which is what we've just looked at, or we can look at the driving style trend report. So I'm going to click on that one. Okay, and we've got a chart here. Now the hexagonals are the speed score and the circles are the driving style score. The bigger the symbols, the more driving time there is at that particular level. Okay, so the bigger the symbols, the more influence they have on the overall score. And you can see his speed score is obviously right at the bottom. He's got lots of red on there and those symbols are very big, and he certainly does deserve his red score on his speeding. He also scored, I think it was slightly below 40, it was 49 point something with the driving style score. So he has got mainly red on here. He has got an amber score on the driver style, but that's not enough to outweigh his bad driving. Basically, he has been hitting the accelerator and the brakes just too hard, so he has scored red on everything, unfortunately. Okay. Right, if I just go back to the league table, just before we leave here, just to let you know that you can use these toggles at the top here. So if, for example, you wanted to sort from the bad, the worst to the best drive speed score, or vice versa, you can use these toggles to sort through the data, and you can use those on all of the columns. You can also have a chart view of the information, just here. And I think I've mentioned already, you can export it to Excel. Okay, right. If you have any questions on any of that, then please do post your questions in the box as we're going along. Okay, right, I'm going to move down the menu here. Let's go back to the driving style. Right, so we've done the daily driver briefing and the league table. We clicked through from the league table to show the driving style trend report, but it does have a menu option on its own that you can select. So if you're not in the league table, you can just go straight onto the trend report there. Okay, so the next one down on the list is the monthly speed report. Okay, we've just actually made some amendments to this. We did have a couple of options on here, but now we've got 4, so we've improved this feature. What it is, you can put any of the criteria in here and it will return every incident when your driver has broken the preset speed or percentage limit that you put in here. So we have a speed limit in miles per hour. So if, for example, you wanted to see all the instances where your fleet of drivers have gone over 80 miles an hour, you'd type 80 miles an hour in there. We've got the percentage above speed limit, so you might want to put 10 or 12% in there. And then we've got the over speed limit in miles per hour. And then we've got the over safe speed as a percentage. So if, for example, you put 95 in there, it will return the information on your top 5 drivers who need to improve, who perhaps pose more of a risk. Well, they obviously do pose more of a risk than the rest of the drivers. So they're in the top 5%. Just to demonstrate this, just to show you what it does, I'm going to put 80 miles an hour in here. Close, we'll do last month and say okay. Okay, let's see if we can find this Lewis Hamilton wannabe down here. Right, okay, we've got him here and he's got his 100.7 miles an hour here. So it gives you the days of the week. Or the days of the time period that you've selected, and it also shows the time and how many minutes he was above 80 miles per hour. Okay, so yeah, it's very useful information. You can scroll down here, there's lots of speedy drivers down here. They all seem to be sort of in the 80s or 90s. Okay, right, so if we go back, okay, and moving on down the menu, go back into the driver style. The last option down here is the weekly speed and utilization chart. Okay, now this one you can generate yourselves on screen. I do have an image to show you in a moment of what the screen would actually look like, but if you put your email address in there, you put your week ending and you say okay. Let me just hop back to our PowerPoint and see if I can get you an image to show you what that would return for you. Sorry for the delay, I'm just trying to get that image for you. Okay, right, here we go. Right, so this is what it would look like. This is the kind of information that you would get returned to you. It would be sent to you by email, and it's a chart for every vehicle for each day of the week. Okay, we've only got 2 demonstrated on here, so you can look across there. It's a very good visual. You can see their speeds throughout the day. You can see if there's any patterns throughout their day. Maybe they speed up in the evening because they want to get home or something. So you can see their top speeds throughout the day and their activity throughout the day as well. Okay, and down the bottom we've got a utilization report. So it shows, whoops, sorry about that. Okay, you've got the percentage of the time that the vehicle has been used during the week. Okay, and it shows the total working hours. You'll see up here we've got 40. When you actually generate this report yourself, you do have the option to change that. So if your drivers do a 35-hour week, then you would want to amend that to get the percentages more accurate on there. Okay, so it shows the total working hours and it includes driving and stationary time. So you can look at this and you can see how much your vehicles are being utilised. You can see if maybe you're utilising one of the vehicles more than others and you might want to make some changes to your vehicles. You might want to swap people over if you have to keep your mileages within certain parameters for your hire company. So yeah, okay. Right, so any questions on that, please do type in the box and we will get to you. Right, okay, moving on, let's have a look. Right, okay, so that is the end of the presentation from me today. I'm going to hand over to Jess, who has been looking at your questions this afternoon and your comments, and she will address some of your questions. Are you there, Jess?
Hi, Alison. Yes, I'm here.
Good. Hi, afternoon.
So we've had loads of questions come in today. So don't worry if we don't have time to get to you. As Alison mentioned, we do have all of your details, so we can come back to you after the webinar. So let's get started, Alison. The first question I have comes from Sam in Bolton, and it is, how can I save money on my fleet using driving style?
Right, okay, there are a couple of different ways. Obviously we've seen some good examples this afternoon. If you have a driver like the one that we've been following this afternoon, who's herring around the country at 100 miles an hour or 80s or 90s, obviously he's going to be using excess fuel. He doesn't need to be traveling at those sorts of speeds. So by monitoring their speeds, you can save on fuel. That also goes for acceleration and braking as well. And there's wear and tear on your vehicles. Obviously there's tires and brakes and things, so it would be a case of making, trying to encourage your drivers to drive more moderately, really, and not drive in the red like the example that we've seen this afternoon. Also, if your drivers are driving safer, by using our safe speed database and looking at the comparisons with other road users, obviously if they're driving within those those boundaries that we've set on there, if they're driving at a safer speed, there is less risk of accidents. So you might find that that could help with your insurance premiums. So there's a few ways there that you can save money by monitoring your driver style.
Excellent, that's a great answer.
Okay.
So moving on to our next question, we have from Terry in Leeds, and he says, why does my driver have a good speed and score but a poor driving style score?
Right, okay, they are actually two separate calculations. Okay, I did notice actually on the demo, let me see if I can go back to the demo, and I did notice someone who had a green score on the speed but was actually in the amber section on the driver's style. Let me see if I can go back there. Okay, right, it was in the league table. Let's see if I can go back here, and driving style league table for that time period. Okay, oops, need to select a group. Okay, so we can see this driver here, QX61JFT. Okay, he scores in amber on the driving style, and then he scores in green on the speed score. Okay, so the speed score is just the speed in comparison to other road users. So in comparison to other road users, he's pretty good. He's kind of going with the flow. He's not driving too fast. With the driving style, he is in the amber section, so he has done a little bit of braking and acceleration. But what we can do to have a good sort of visual of that and kind of make it a bit more real is if we click on his registration number here, okay, and go into his trend report. Okay, right, we will see that he's got some red here on the driver style scoring, and he's got some amber. Okay, he's got quite a bit of amber, a fair amount of red as well, but the amber has kind of counteracted the red on here, and he's gone into the amber section with his score of 55. But you can see with the hexagonals here on the speed scoring, in comparison to other road users, he's driving pretty good. He's not above the average in too many incidents. So we have got a couple of ambers, but the predominant ones here are green. They are bigger, so he's been driving more time in the green than he has in the amber. Okay, so he has got a green score there. Okay, so basically to answer your question, they are two separate calculations. Okay, one is just comparing the speed is just comparing to other road users, and the style takes into account braking and acceleration and the time that the vehicle has been driven. Okay.
Excellent, thanks ever so much, Alison. We have another question that comes from Mary in Essex, and she says, do I need an engineer to upgrade Info Point to Info Plus?
Right, okay, not necessarily, no. I would say 9 times out of 10 you probably won't. You can get in touch with us afterwards, and we can tell you for definite what sort of units you have fitted into your vehicles. It's our very old units, so if you have really old units with us, then maybe they would need an upgrade, but most of our modern units can cope with the driving style score, and we would enable it for you. We can enable it for you remotely, and as we said at the beginning of the presentation, if you are interested in an upgrade, you can drop me or the customer resources email address a line afterwards, and we'll give you a call and discuss the options with you.
Excellent, thanks ever so much.
Okay.
I think that's all we have time for with questions. So if we didn't get round to you, don't worry, we will be back in touch afterwards. So I think we're going to go to the poll now. So we want you to tell us what you want in our next webinar. So we've got a poll of the most popular topics that we've had so far that we're going to open up for you now. So as you can see, we've got navigating live tracking, how to save money with tracking, dashboards, and fleet management. So simply select which one you'd like to have in the next webinar, and then we will get that sorted for you. Okay, so our poll has now closed, and I'm going to hand back to you, Alison, to finish off today.
Yeah, okay, that's great. We will let you know the results of the poll, obviously. We do communicate with you by newsletter, so you should be receiving our newsletters. If you're not, again, just type newsletter into the box and we'll make sure that you go onto our mailing list. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just get some numbers on the screen for you. Here we are. Okay, so there's myself at the top with my direct email address and my direct line number. So you can give me a call either about the webinar or any subject at all to do with Quartix. If you'd like some training, any one-to-one training, or we could open this webinar platform for you, just give me a call and we'll sort something out with you. I'm part of the customer resources team, so if for any reason you can't get hold of me directly, we have the customer resources team and the email address and phone number there, and I've just popped the system support email address on there as well, so for system changes you can email them. Okay, right, so we are almost at the end. I've just put a reminder on screen about our referral program. You may have seen this before. We've been running it for a month or two. Basically, if you have anyone who is interested in Quartix and take up the system and get some units installed, we reward both yourself and the person who's taken our system by giving you a fuel card with some money on. So get referring. There is a form on our website that you can download, or you can just pop us an email to any of those addresses that came up earlier. Okay, so we're right at the end of the presentation now. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. Hope you found it useful and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.